Some of you might remember a couple of weeks ago, Trump had a coronavirus test done. This is what he was claiming. And he got his results back, and it was not even a full 24 hours. It makes me wonder if this is the test that he got. And if it is, it's very highly flawed. This is a story that came out on NPR. They put out these COVID-19 machines, and it can test you, and you get your results back in 15 minutes. The problem is this particular test is highly flawed. The accuracy rate is not good, and it produces a lot of false negatives. So ultimately, there are a lot of people out here that had this ID Now test done, and they are believing they're negative, and they're really not negative at all. This is a story that came out on NPR April 21st, 2020. The fastest test being used to diagnose people infected with the coronavirus appears to be the least accurate test now in common use, according to new research obtained by NPR. So this test is more common than uncommon now. I guess they decided to come up with something that would give fast results. The problem is, this is the big problem with America. It's just way too many impatient people. And anytime they try to rush something through like this, it's always going to be some kind of failure behind it. Everybody wants, what do they call it, in a New York minute? Well, you can't have everything in a New York minute. Sometimes you just got to wait. And, when I think back to Trump claiming he was tested, I wonder if this is the test they gave him. That's why he got these quick results. And they're already saying that, there's quite a few people that got a false negative from this thing. So there's some audio here, y'all, and I'm going to let you listen to it.
Three states in the South are planning to reopen parts of their economies in the next few days. The governors of Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee have said they're going to ease restrictions. Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, says his state has upped testing and that health professionals have given the go-ahead. Georgia gyms, bowling alleys, and salons will be able to open as long as they follow social distancing and cleaning guidelines. Now, these reopenings are happening despite the fact that there's still a lot of concern over testing shortages in the United States. And there is another problem. NPR has learned that some new, faster tests may not be as reliable as hoped. Health correspondent Rob Stein broke this story. Hi, Rob.
Hey there. Good morning.
Tell me about this new fast test and what's going on.
It's called the Abbott ID Now test, and it's gotten a lot of attention because it's so fast. It can tell someone if they're negative or positive in less than 15 minutes, like the quick flu or strep test we're used to seeing in clinics and doctors' offices. President Trump has bragged about this a lot at the White House briefings, and lots of people have been talking about how the Abbott ID Now test could help life get back to normal.
Okay, but there is a problem with it. What's the problem?
Well, it appears this test can miss more infected people than other tests. Dr. Gary Prokop is a top medical testing expert at the Cleveland Clinic. He shared with NPR the results of what could be the biggest study so far to take a look at this. He tested 239 specimens with the ID Now test and 4 other commonly used tests. Here's what he found.
The Abbott test in our 5-test comparison produced the most false negatives out of all the tests.
He says that test detected only 85.2% of the positive specimens.
So that means, if you had 100 patients that were positive, 15% of those patients would be falsely called negative. They'd be told that they're negative for COVID when they're really positive.
Wow, so 15% of people could be walking around thinking that they are in the clear when in fact they're sick, they're positive.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. And, the concern is they could spread it to other people. Now, this test isn't the most common test out there today, but 50,000 are being produced each day, and that's increasing fast. So, for one thing, Prokop says that these false negatives make it really dangerous for deciding whether it's safe, for example, to have patients come into hospitals, maybe for like elective surgeries. Let's listen to a little bit more of what he said about that.
If you have a patient coming into the hospital and you're going to put them into what has been determined to be a COVID-free ward, you have to have the most sensitive test available. Because once you put somebody with COVID into a COVID-free ward, it's no longer a COVID-free ward anymore. It's your new COVID ward.
So Prokop says his hospital stopped using the test that way. Instead, they're going with the 3 other tests that hit the mark between 96 and 100% of the time.
So what's happening with this test now? Is it being used for other things?
Yeah, it's being used to test doctors and nurses, regular people who are worried they may be sick, family members of sick people. And there's talk about using it to help decide all sorts of things like, who's safe to go back to work or get on a plane. Here's Gary Prokop again from the Cleveland Clinic.
It is a risk that if you tell somebody they're negative and they're truly positive, that they will relax social distancing, not wear a face mask, etc., and could transmit the disease. So that's a truth.
Rob, let me ask you about Abbott, the company that makes the test. What are they saying about this?
Abbott says the test is very reliable and any problems are not being caused by the test itself. It could be how it's being used. That specimens are being diluted instead of going directly into the Abbott machines like they're supposed to. But Prokop says the company needs to prove that. Now, it's important to note that all tests can produce false negatives, if the sample isn't collected the right way or at the right time. And just because someone tests negative one day, they may get infected the next day. And the Abbott ID Now quick test can be very useful, especially when it's really important to get results really fast. And most of the time it is right. But Prokop says it's important to know that even when someone gets a negative test, they may still be infected. They can't get lulled into a false sense of security. They can't let their guard down.
Health correspondent Rob Stein. Thanks so much for this reporting, Rob.
You bet.
Now, you think about this. There are states that want to reopen. It's no telling how many people out there took this test and they said it's a common one. And they are actually contagious. And they're believing they are negative because this particular machine gave them that false negative. Do you know how dangerous that would be to the public? Now this person is believing and they're walking around believing they're negative and saying, well, I was tested, it came back negative, and they're really not. How many people they can now expose? This can be crazy. And with all of these states that are just itching to open back up, I can just see how dangerous this is going to be. But it don't take long for this virus to show up. So as soon as these states reopen, probably in under 2 weeks, they'll be closed again. But y'all, tell me what you think. Do you think this test should be removed from the market? If it's giving so many false negative, I would think they would take this thing off the market. But see, this is the end result of not taking the time to test something out, and you're just in such a hurry and you're so worried about the virus instead of worrying about the quality of what you're putting out. You're just putting something out there. How much testing went into this machine before it was released to the public? So just tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. This is ridiculous. It is. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.